How an application is assessed. So I think this is a topic that is that every one of us are very concerned about. And I guess as a start, I maybe share with you my attitude. I have to write proposals every year. And every time I write it, to me, at first, I remember the first few years I wrote it, it's always a nerve-wracking exercise. But I think as I gain more experience, I have come to a realization that I think proposal writing is a period when I work intensely in trying to figure out a direction for myself for the next 3 years, for example. And I mean, in this process then, if you just think about it, you have to figure out a direction for yourself, for your future research, okay, in the next 3-year time frame. And therefore, you have to think extremely hard, and you have to read a lot, and you have to talk to a lot of people maybe, because maybe you're targeting a interdisciplinary research, or maybe you're borrowing ideas from another field and applying to your own. And so it's a very intense period where, as I say, because you're reading so much, you're reading papers, you're reading books, and you are thinking a lot, and you're trying to formulate something, and you're trying to determine what you may be able to undertake as a research task for yourself over the next 3 years. That period is actually, as an academic, I've learned to actually enjoy that period. I mean, maybe some of you may think that this is outrageous, but but I have to say, you know, as I say, in the first few years, when I place too much emphasis on whether I'm going to get it or not, then it's all nerves, okay? It's all nervousness. But later on, when you actually think of this period as a learning period, as a self-searching period, and you're trying to define your own direction for the next 3 years, and you just imagine you actually have to do it, okay? If you get the money, you have to do it. And when you actually get it, and in the process of actually executing your plan, you know, just think of a 3-year time horizon of executing a plan that you have authored for yourself earlier on. That's actually a rather rewarding experience. And of course, there are situations, and just be prepared that when you actually execute, you're going to run into all sorts of problems that you did not foresee 3 years back. But that itself is a challenge, and in the process you will discover new knowledge, and you will learn a lot. And so I think that is the value of a grant proposal writing exercise. That itself, I think, is a value. So, of course, we all care about whether we're going to get funded or not. But in the end, I think if you don't get funded, and I know there's an element of luck in it, as Doug was saying, but there's also an element of quality, okay? In fact, it's quality that matters, and it's a competitive exercise. So the other thing, though, is you will see that there's a lot of review comments coming out. So, in fact, over the years that I've been sitting on the panel, we actually value resubmitted proposals where the grant writer pay attention to a lot of the comments from the previous year and tries to address them. And if the reviewer thinks that there is sincere and sufficient effort in sufficiently addressing those issues, it's very likely that proposal, the second time around, is going to be funded. Okay, so that's sort of the backdrop of it. So, so now I'm going to go into the more pragmatic sides, so that you know what goes on in the assessment process. Okay, so first of all, we have different subjects. Okay, we have medicine, engineering, humanities, business, and physical sciences. So there are different subject codes, as you will see, and in each subject we have a convener. And the convener, for every proposal, he or she is going to assign readers. Okay, so for every proposal, there's a first reader and a second reader. Now, what the first reader will do is the first reader gets assigned a proposal, and then he or she is responsible for nominating, excuse me, for nominating external reviewers. So this is not applicable for IDS, but for the other grants it is. Okay, so the first reader will nominate external reviewers, and then the proposal goes out to these reviewers for review. And a lot of reading and commenting comes in. And then when the external reviewers' assessment comes in, then both the first and second readers will go through them. Okay, so I've served as a first reader, a second reader. And so typically what happens is these two readers they are going to read the proposal, and then they're also going to read the assessment of the reviewers. Now, I must say that some reviewers are very detailed, and some reviewers are not so detailed. Some reviewers are very opinionated, and some reviewers are less opinionated and maybe take on a more balanced view. So there's always a variety in the reviewers' comments. Some reviewers are high graders, right? Okay, so they generally give high marks. There are some reviewers are tough graders. They generally give low marks, all right? Now, so the task of the first and second readers they will go through these review comments for a particular proposal, and then between themselves, they will also discuss and try to normalize, okay? And so then they will actually come back, and they will have a preliminary assessment, overall assessment of a proposal. And then that's when the assessment panel will sit together. So it's a pretty lengthy meeting that is long, okay? So the whole assessment panel will sit together and discuss the proposals, where each proposal, so we go through the panels, and for every proposal, we actually will ask the first and second reader to talk about it and talk about how they arrive at their decisions in view of all the review comments. So usually for every proposal, there's a summary table. I mean, I think our staff at RGC are really excellent. So they provide us with an overall view that you will see all the ratings, and you will see the gist of all the comments. And if you want to deep dive into a particular reviewer, so for example, if you have less congruent reviews, right? So you have a proposal, you have several review comments coming in. Some are like maybe a majority is generally positive, and there's one that's very negative. Then that is something that we take extra examination and take, maybe the negative one is catching something that the other two didn't. Maybe the negative one is a more opinionated one, or maybe they took on a different view and look at the problem from a different angle, and therefore they have found some flaws with it. So this is when we need to actually look carefully, right? When there's generally good agreement across all the reviews, then that may be an easier task. When there is less of an agreement, we need to take a better look. If there is a rather divergent views, then we need to take an extremely deep and profound examination, okay? So the assessment panel actually discusses the proposals, and each first and second reader will talk about it. Sometimes even the first and second readers, they may not totally agree. And then they need to talk about it, and they need to harmonize among themselves. And then with the assessment panel involved, the rating of the proposal will be finalized. So that will be the finalization of the rating, and then that goes to the steering committee in another meeting. The steering committee needs to endorse the panel's recommendation, and eventually all these decisions will go back to the RGC for the results to be announced. So in terms of this major assessment criteria, I was actually looking through the the details, and basically it's pretty similar to what in the UGC sector that we're used to. So essentially, for the FDS scheme, faculty development scheme, it is a merit-based assessment, and academic quality is key. It is the primary evaluation criterion. Now, so the objective, bear in mind, of the FDS is to develop the research capability of the proposer, of individual academics, so that they will transfer their research experiences into new knowledge, into teaching and learning. Okay, so the key phrase here is, which is the main objective of the FDS scheme, is to provide resources for our individual academics to conduct research in order for their research to inform their teaching. That's how they stay abreast of the advancements and the developments of the field. Okay, so if your research, if whatever the knowledge you gain in the research topics that you pursue, you learn new things, you inject that into your teaching, and that benefits your students. That benefits the education. Okay. So so on each assessment criterion, so I think the words are there: objective and research agenda, research design and methodology, feasibility, innovativeness, and research impact. So I think the proposal, the CFP, the call for proposals itself, has a very detailed description of what is expected in each of these sections. But let me just try to back up a little bit and express to you how I digest these words, okay? So the first thing is the objective and research agenda. So you ask yourself, okay, what problem are you solving? What is the problem? Right? What is your objective? What is your goal? What do you want to achieve, right? What is an open question that is currently unsolved? Okay, so that is your objective. So what is the problem? And then you have to say, why is it a problem? And why is it a problem? Now, in order to answer that question, you need to conduct literature reviews. Literature survey. Is this problem that you think is a problem really a problem? So you read a lot, that's where you read a lot, okay? What are the methodologies that other people have used to address this problem or this issue? What are the methodologies that other people have used? Are these methodologies successful? Are there gaps? Have they fully addressed this problem? Have they fully provided a solution for this problem that is in your mind? Well, you hope they haven't. And if they haven't, you grasp that point, okay? What is still unsolved? So you try to go towards a problem and you say, okay, what have other people done? Are these good enough solutions? What are the gaps? And you catch the gaps. And then you say, okay, maybe I'm going to do better than all these other previous approaches because I'm going to fill that gap. Right? So then I've only talked about other people's work. You can then also promote yourself. Okay? Do you have relevant experiences that you can leverage? So why, what is this problem? And is it a real problem? And then you talk about why you? Why are you the best person to solve this problem? Okay, maybe you're the best person because you come up with this idea that is a fantastic idea. It will fill in this gap that you have found out in previous approaches. So these are the insufficiencies of the previous approaches. And you're gonna take a stab at it, and you're gonna try to develop a solution to that gap. Okay, so then you can draw upon your experiences. You say, look, I'm going to attack this problem, and I bring with me these experiences that are relevant. Okay, these experiences that are relevant. So you can draw upon your own work, and so the literature survey will also talk about work done by yourself, all right? Yourself or you and your co-investigators, okay? And then you talk about how you're gonna do it. How you're gonna do it, okay? So it's the research, design, and methodology. So let me back up a little bit now, all right? So I've taken a few steps. So one is, what is the problem? So what does that mean? If you want to solve this problem, what are some of the objectives that you have to reach? Okay, so you say, well, if I want to solve this bigger problem, I need to divide and conquer. I need to hit this, and hit this. You know, you have a few objectives. And then you have to do, while you're formulating your objectives, you actually have to bring in a lot of your know-how and also your literature review efforts, and you say, look, other people have tried this and that, and they still haven't solved this problem that I'm solving, okay? So that's the literature part. And so that's a gap. So now I'm gonna solve this, and this is my methodology, okay? So how am I going to do it? What is the timeline? So I think in the proposal, you're supposed to come up with a Gantt chart. So the Gantt chart would be, you have project objectives, okay? So in order to solve this problem, you have to hit a few milestones. And what is the timeline that you're gonna hit these milestones? So some milestones have to be hit before others, because while you're hitting an earlier milestone, you put in place the necessary ingredients to hit the next milestone. So the Gantt chart actually lays out your plan of attack. All right, so that is the research, design, and methodology. Now, feasibility is something that you need to convince yourself and your reviewers, okay? Is this plan of attack reasonable? Is it doable within the time frame that you're proposing? It may be 2 years, it may be 3 years, whatever, okay? Whatever it is. So you might, actually your reviewers might say, well, the objectives are basically the milestones, and this person has a big objective, and he's only allocating a small amount of time, like half a year on it. He may not be able to finish it, okay? So it all ties together. Like you have your plan of attack, your research, design, and methodology, and by the way, and by the way, you have to say, okay, my research, design, and methodology is going to follow this timeline. And you might even think about, like when you're trying to address a certain objective, you may think about multiple possible pathways, right? So if I want to go from here to there, you say, oh, I can take this method, or if this fails, I can take this other method, or if this fails, then I'll take this other method, okay? So you actually might propose multiple pathways in trying to reach a certain objective. And in doing so, you actually not only convince your reviewers that you have thought through the problem carefully, you're also covering, possible failures with alternative solutions, which means you're more likely to succeed. Okay, so feasibility actually has a lot to do with trying to convince yourself and your reviewers that your methodology is doable, that you're actually going to reach that milestone, one after another, based on this methodology. And innovativeness is also important. Innovativeness is, people will ask, well, is this proposal taking a path that has been trodden, taking a path that other people have pursued, and is it just trying to retread a known path? Or is it trying to attempt a new method to address a gap that currently does not have a good solution? So that is innovativeness. Now, how do you come up with innovativeness? That also goes back to literature review. Because if you're diligent enough to do your literature review, then you will see all the alternative methods that have been tried, and to what extent they have succeeded, to what extent they have failed, or to what extent they have not succeeded. And therefore, you can point out why your method exceeds the previous approaches, why your proposed method is going to excel above and beyond the previous approaches. If you can do that, then you can convince other people that you're innovative, that your problem is innovative, and your design and your methodology is innovative. Okay? So basically it's asking, so I would say, 1 to 4, 1 to 4 is a lot of questions you ask yourself. What am I going to do? Why is it a meaningful problem? How am I going to do it? Why should I be doing it? Why should I be doing it now? Why should I be doing it in this way? So I hope the way I present it now is going to help you crystallize this template. Okay, so it's really I think this template really evolves around encouraging you to think through the problem very clearly. And if you actually do that, I'm an engineer, so I'm an engineer, so anything I do, it must be very concrete in my mind. Okay, so, and I think in general that's true of all the proposals that is expected of all the proposals. It needs to be very concrete and clear. All right, you don't have to be overly long-winded, but you need to actually lay out a concrete plan. And it is the proposer's responsibility to convince the reviewers and the first and second readers that, look, you've got to give me the funding because I'm going to do this great thing that's solving a problem that all the other approaches have not solved. Okay? So you need to write in a very clear and convincing and concrete way that your reviewers would be persuaded. Okay? And they're persuaded because your method is new, your idea is cool, your idea is innovative, and so on. Now, research impact is definitely very important. It basically underscores why it matters, why you should be solving this problem, now. And research impact is defined as the demonstrable contributions, beneficial effects, valuable changes, advantages that the research can bring to, economy, society, culture, public policy, or services, health, environment, quality of life. That is beyond academia, okay? The impact of your research. It may also include social and economic impact and research that translates into products and services, as well as research that aligns with important policy, community, and social objectives. So impact is up to you to spell out and justify. So you can say my research is very important. It in some sense, it's almost like a motivation of why when you actually think of a problem that has tremendous impact, you're very well motivated to try to solve that problem. Okay, and here in the proposal, you're requested to spell out what you think is the impact of your research. Why is it valuable that if you develop a solution to this problem that you're focusing on, where is the value? Where is it going to reap benefits, okay, in many, many aspects that are possible? So it's up to you to lay out the impact. Okay, so I'm going to share with you some of the panel's observation on FDS. In general, we found that the quality of the proposals varied across subjects. And comparatively, the success rate of these science subjects, such as biology and medicine, engineering and physical sciences, is higher in the last exercise. And we found that the PIs who are more seasoned usually put forward stronger proposals. So if you are a green scholar who do not have much prior working experiences in writing proposals, you may actually bring on board some experienced co-investigators, okay? And your proposals will be clearer, more compelling, more innovative. And again, as I say, the conceptual framework and research design are very important. It needs to be concrete. Okay? It can't be fuzzy and vague. It must be very concrete. If you throw out a definition of a term, it needs to be concrete and discriminative, and very, very clear. 2 points. I'd like to remind you of 2 opportunities. One is to engage undergraduate students in FDS projects. And that will actually provide your undergraduate students with a training opportunity. And you can actually apply for related allowance of $2,500 per month for up to 10 months. And secondly, we know that we fully understand that in self-funded sector, you have very heavy teaching load. So in order to conduct this research project, if you need to take time away from teaching, you can apply for teaching relief. Okay, so that you can free up some time to work on this project. Okay, so IIDS. So major assessment criteria is pretty much the same, but the objective of IIDS is different. Okay, so IIDS aims at enhancing the academics' research capability to keep them abreast of new developments and challenging research topics in relevant fields through the organization of workshops or short courses on an institutional or joint institutional basis. So if there's a new area, a new research topic, or a new field that you want to get exposure on, then you can team up within your institution or across institutions to organize these workshops and short courses. And generally, we've observed that the quality of the proposals is very good. And we would just like to remind that in terms of objectives, one should pay attention to aiming at enhancing research capacity within the institution and achieving area excellence and professional collaboration. And for the speakers of the symposium and workshop, we should remember not to invite anyone, but try to invite world-renowned or representative scholars, more like the pillar figures of that field that you're trying to gain new knowledge on in the area as speakers. Now, the budget should be reasonable and should be modest, because sometimes we observe some rather a bit excessive budget. So because RGC, we're talking about public money here, so we need to be careful about that. Now for IDS, IDS aims at building up the research capacity of the local self-financing degree awarding institutions in their strategic areas. And the existing mode of operation of the IDS will continue in the 6th round, the 2019-20 round. And the assessment criteria, again, long-term impact and sustainability. And the key here is to build up research capacity of the institution. So one important point is we actually need to look at the outcome, to spell out the outcome. And of course, also feasibility and implementation strategy, how you're going to do it, whether your proposed method is doable, and the financial arrangement. So applications, when they're assessed, we actually pay attention to whether the proposed area is in line with the strategic area of the institutions. Okay, so you need to spell out the linkage between the proposal and the strategic areas of the institutions, because we're trying to build up capacity within that institution. And the proposals should be specific enough and focus on a few achievable areas. And there should be the right people in the project team to implement the project. Now, the project team should not rely on junior or newly recruited supporting staff funded by the project to carry out the work. The PI needs to lead the IDS project. And of course, the project may involve funding, manpower funding, and you can hire manpower, but someone needs to lead. A junior person like or a research assistant or someone you hire at a more junior level, they will not be able to lead that project. Whoever wrote the proposal, who has the vision of the ideas, who has that strategic area in mind, that is in line with the institution's strategic area, that PI, the principal investigator, needs to lead. Okay? And again, the budget should be modest, especially in organizing conferences, seminars, workshops, purchasing of equipment, data sets, and also engaging overseas scholars. You can think of engaging overseas scholars to provide mentorship to the faculty members. Now, the project team should definitely articulate the outcome of the proposed program of activities. How are these activities related to the project objectives? Can they actually enhance the research capacity of the faculty members? And the project team should also tell how they can measure the effectiveness of the proposed activities on the enhancement of research capacity. Now, this actually takes some thought, okay? So we may not necessarily be talking about papers, but sometimes if you can generate papers or proposal, you need to have more tangible outcomes, okay? Tangible outcomes for this. Now, in terms of the scoring, it's a five-point scale. So you know the grading. There's detailed description on the grading. 5 is highest priority and should be funded. 4 is, priority in funding. 4.5, sorry. 4.5, funded as a matter of priority. 4 is worthy of consideration of funding. 3.5 is competitive but not of sufficient priority to recommend for funding. 3 is not recommended. 2 and 1 are even lower. So just some feedback on assessments. So RGC, again, as I mentioned earlier, will provide comments of the external reviewers and readers to the applicants, and where necessary, convey additional comments from the subject panels. Now, as I said, if an applicant decides to resubmit a proposal in a later exercise, he or she needs to respond to the reviewer's comments in the application and explain whether changes have been incorporated in the latest proposals. And some reviewers' comments may be more agreeable or disagreeable than others. And if a rebuttal is offered, like if you decide to offer a rebuttal, you must take on a scholarly and preferably measured approach. Research misconduct. So RGC actually attaches great importance to research integrity. PIs should not commit any research misconduct when submitting research proposals to the RGC or conducting research funded to the RGC. Okay, so basically there are some common types of research misconduct. One is non-disclosure of related research proposals. Second is plagiarism. Third is falsification or fabrication, making up something. And fourth is double dipping. And so basically what it means is if you have work, so if you're writing a proposal of work that is to be done, and for this work that is to be done, you have laid out the research methodology, and then you also say, how much would this methodology cost, right? Then that funding goes into actually carrying out that research methodology within the projected time. So if you have done some other study and you say, oh, I can use those results and in place of that, that's something that you shouldn't do, okay? That is something that you shouldn't do. So sometimes we see working papers that are almost identical or have great similarity to a proposal, then it basically does not justify the value of a proposal, because if there's already a working paper and the study has been done and the experiments have been done, why is a proposal being submitted for funding in the future to be used in a research methodology that has already appeared with results in a working paper, right? So that is not good, okay? So so the panel will actually forward alleged misconduct cases to the disciplinary committee for investigation if the cases warrant. And the most common type of research misconduct is non-disclosure of related research proposals or projects in the funding application. So when in doubt, just declare it. When in doubt, just say it and say what, you have a similar project elsewhere. Now you have this project, you spell out why is this project different? Where is it different from that so-called similar project? That would merit, that will justify your asking for new funding in the current proposal, okay? So in declaration of related research work, investigators should not seek duplicate funding and declare all related research work. And also, we're talking about no duplicate funding from all sources, including the RGC, and the PC and the PI should ensure that each project member understands the requirement and has declared all related research work. If you have a co-I, make sure he or she knows also, and make sure that proper declaration of related work is made. So if the investigator fails to disclose any related research work that is being or has been conducted in relation to the proposal in this section, he or she will be subjected to disciplinary action, and either the application will be disqualified or the PI may be debarred from applying for future UGC and RGC grants. Okay. So then you may ask, so what is related research work? So related research work refers to any research work that is being done or has been done in relation to the proposal, including but not limited to data collection, preliminary research, working papers, publications, such as journal papers, conference papers and books, presentations, media interviews, and other submitted proposals. So essentially, as I said, you are going to ask for funding that will come in the future to conduct that work. So if today you have already some work that has already appeared in some form, then the question is, why do you need funding in the future if you already have done that work? Okay, so that's something that is you need to pay very close attention to it. All right.